Hello and welcome back to Geek Warning, the cycling tech-focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome. Joining me once again, Ronan McLaughlin. How are you doing?
Good, yeah. I feel like I'm sitting in front of a microphone constantly these days, but...
You're just telling me that you have the week off. Why is that?
Dude, the week off. Yeah, you're wasted in tech. You should be a comedian.
Thank you very much. No, off mic, you just mentioned that this might be your fourth podcast for the week.
No, that was, I think I haven't had enough coffee. I was trying to say this is my second day in a row doing a podcast, and I have 4 days in a row of podcasting this week. So,
okay. So yeah,
by the end of this one, I'll be halfway through.
Halfway. What's with all the podcasting?
Yesterday was a fun one, and it'll be on Performance Process by the time you hear this episode of Geek Warning. It was with Dan Bigham and the Cycling Spy.
Oh, how is Dan two people on the same show?
Well, this is the thing like we got into in the podcast. Like, despite the fact that we have 3 separate people on the podcast, it will do nothing to quash the conspiracy theories that either Dan or myself are the Cycling Spy.
Sounds like a tough one to edit, but yeah, I'm impressed you pulled that one off.
We have amazing editors who can make these things happen. So,
okay.
Yeah, we were talking about Dan about 6 weeks ago. Dan spent a day riding in the pitch dark wearing big welder's goggles through a laser that could have blinded him instantly, all in the name of aerodynamics.
He wasn't just aligning his stem.
He wasn't, I mean, maybe, but that wasn't the primary goal of the day. Yeah, he's been doing what's called PIV, particle image velocimetry.
Wow.
And he came on the show just to explain what that is, why it's so interesting. And then we had Cycling Spy on as well, because he brought PIV to a lot of people's attention on the podcast earlier this year, and he said, like, whoever figures this out first, whoever can do PIV and cycling first, will have a year's worth of significant advantage over everybody else in terms of aerodynamics. So given that Bigham is now doing it, it seemed right to have the Spy, who knows his stuff on this, come on and quiz him. And he got, I mean, you know the way we work, Dave, we kind of just like ease into a conversation, and you like, and then you ask the harder questions. Spy was just like, boom, straight in. Hard questions. What are you talking about, Dan?
Well, I'll be tuning in because I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm curious to learn more on that topic. That one did go straight over my head.
Bigham's always said that you can't see aero. Everybody's always said you can't see aero. And effectively what he's trying to do is see aero. They're using the lasers.
With a laser that'll blind you.
With a laser that will render you unable to see anything if you get it wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
But basically they're using helium filled like soap bubbles and these lasers and 10,000 frame per second cameras.
My goodness.
To capture what those helium bubbles do as he rides through them. And then they're able to basically effectively see the wake generated by him riding through the helium bubbles. Which isn't quite the same as riding through air, but it's close enough that you can, be able to, you can see all the interactions, see how the wake forms, see all the vortexes sort of generating off and swirling out behind him. And
it sounds to me like a very interesting sci-fi story mixed with a very expensive techno music film clip.
It does. Like, even the pictures look a bit sci-fi. The pictures are sort of, you couldn't have someone in the tunnel at the same time as they're doing this because, the risk of being blinded is too high in that. So the pictures are sort of done in a way afterwards, and they're sort of enhanced in this in a way that we can actually see so that we can appreciate what's going on here. As Bigham's riding through it in this dark, disused railway tunnel that's been converted into like an aero testing facility. So it's already dark, and then he's wearing these big goggles so he doesn't go blind, and he's having to ride through this laser wall at the same speed, heading the exact same line, with his feet in the exact same position and his whole entire body in the exact same position, run after run after run for like 100 runs that day. It was unfortunately I had a chance to go there and witness the whole thing, but I had prior commitments, so I couldn't travel to that. But yeah, it's we kind of get into like what this means for the future of aero and why he would even want to do this in the first
Interesting.
place.
All right. Well, laser bubble tunnels. You heard it here first.
Laser bubble tunnels.
Yeah, I'll point everyone towards performance process for a deeper dive on that. When is that out?
That will be out later, as we're recording this later today.
Okay.
So anybody listening to this episode will definitely be able to go onto the Performance Process channel and find it there already.
Okay. And members only?
Don't know. What do you think? Might open this up one up, will we?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm also opening up another episode on Geek Warning. It's a bonus episode which I'll explain in a moment. But yeah, I don't know. A week of free episodes, maybe.
If you open up yours and I don't then I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
So
well,
kind of have to. You've put me in an awkward situation here where I'm like doing good work and not getting paid for it. It kind of feels very, very, very familiar.
Yes, it is. It is the story of our lives. But I think, let's open it up and let's use this week to ask people to share all the free bonus episodes that would normally be behind a paywall that are going to be available to all. If you enjoy the content, then share it and explain to whoever you share it with what Escape Collective is all about and how we're solely member funded and we need more support. But yeah, I guess from me, like that's the podcast that I've got coming out is a deep dive on the new Giant Anthem that came out basically yesterday by the time you're hearing this. And yeah, it's a Giant's mountain bike. It's not very often that you have a bike that's already won a world championship that hasn't been released yet. So yeah, it's a bike that Alan Hathley rode to his win a couple of months ago, but yeah, all the details are now official, even though everyone's already seen the bike. So yeah, that's what I was doing in Taiwan last week, and I managed to get some rides on it, and a full review still to come, but it's a pretty in-depth initial impressions and write up that I've got online. And I managed to sit down with the category manager of the bike to chat through design decisions that went into it. And at the end of that episode, which you will hear because it's not just members only, I've decided to keep that one open. I also sit down with Alan Hathley and chat about like aero in mountain bikes and his thoughts on like the importance of compliance. So yeah, some good stuff in there for bike geeks.
Well, maybe we just send people to that podcast. I was going to get into it here now, the bike and your impressions and that. But I mean, if there's a dedicated podcast to it.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast doesn't really have so much of my impressions. It's really just an interview. But I guess the question I have coming away from this bike is that, interestingly, it's the highest end mountain bike that Giant has basically ever done. It's the second bike in their range to feature that advanced SL composite that they introduced with the TCR last year. And so, yeah, amongst that, there's high grade materials that they're using, but also new methods that they're using to make it. Like they're using a different way to actually cut the swatches of carbon fiber, and they're layering it up in a slightly different way, like with larger pieces that are a bit more critical of how they're molded. And then internally, they're not really using the more common method of like a pressurized latex internal, that gets pressurized and that does the interior wall of the carbon. They're actually using something they're a bit vague on, but it's more like a rigid plastic that they wrap around, and then that rigid plastic is sort of melted and pulled out afterwards. So yeah, they're basically able to get like much more precise wall thicknesses, and through that they use a lot less redundant material, so a lot less overlap of material, and the result is a really lightweight frame, which is historically, I'd say, not characteristic for Giant. They've normally been pretty conservative, but this thing's the frame on this Anthem is lighter than an S-Works Epic, not including the shock. But yeah, I mean, that's not really a stat I had expected to hear from them. But it does bring up the question for me, which is Giant have used that same frame, that same like S-Works level frame across all price points of this new Anthem. Yes, I mean, the outcome of that is you have these complete bike options that all share the exact same frame as the top tier model. And it's in theory a frame that's like equivalent to like a Cannondale Lab 71 or a Specialized S-Works in terms of its design level. But yeah, I mean, just as one example, the base level version comes with Shimano Dior mechanical shifting, TRP brakes, and yeah, it doesn't look like it's being stocked in like North America, UK, or Australia, but it's €4,500 in other markets. Perhaps a fairer comparison would be there's the next model up, which is the one I'll be reviewing, is 5,600 USD, and that gets you like a combination of like SRAM T90 and T70 mechanical shifting, aluminium wheels, carbon handlebar. So yeah, I mean the value is not super apparent in this, and I guess that's my question: is like, do you think that consumers will be accepting of that, understanding that they're paying for this frame that's like equivalent to an S-Works when the rest of the bike is seemingly poor value?
I think to answer that, I'd also need to know how the top end spec compares in price to an S-Works or a Lab 71 or something along those lines, because if the top end level is coming down relative to those with the premium spec, then there's maybe an argument for it. But if including the higher spec carbon layup in the frame across all levels is only raising the price of the lower tier options, which, let's face it, are probably going to be what most people are looking at, then I don't think that's a good thing. I mean, yeah, it's nice that you're getting the same frame layup and all this, that, and the other, but I mean, you know, for most people at that price point, also the frame layup isn't going to be what they notice on a daily basis. I don't think it's going to be the quality of the other components on the frame.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. So 15,000 USD for a S-Works Epic 8, and the Giant equivalent, which basically has like the exact suspension, seat post, and drivetrain package, is just $500 less. So kind of, yeah, within the same region in terms of pricing.
Is the S-Works logo accounting for the $500 there? Genuinely, like, I think it's I don't know if it's a fair question, but I guess it's a genuine question.
Yeah. I mean, historically,
like, is that the frame layup is making that difference, or is it just you're paying for one brand name versus another?
I mean, historically, you have paid a premium for the S-Works logo, but yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one though. Like, yeah, getting that top level frame is just not commonly done, and I kind of hadn't really expected it from Giant, who have historically always offered multiple tiers of a frame, and so I think it's uncharted territory for a brand this big.
So, like, what was their rationale for it?
They kind of suggested that some of the tech in the bike was near impossible to do without the new carbon fiber technology. That the way the shock is placed within the top tube, and also the way they control the flex for the rear suspension, it's a very controlled level of flex. They had suggested that all, that's all really only possible through the materials and the construction that they'd settled on. They haven't ruled out that maybe there'll be cheaper versions in future. I suspect those cheaper versions will just jump straight to aluminium. But yeah, for now it's just one level, and they seem to think that one level is like uncompromising, and that there would have to be compromises in the design to make it a cheaper layup.
Part of me also thinks so. Like, I think it's fairly well known that the mountain bike segment has been struggling the most across the bike industry, and there's perhaps some economies of scale or economies from reducing the number of SKUs and that you're offering, and so having one frame instead of two or maybe three perhaps helps in some way, shape, or form. And it's maybe an easier story to sell that, oh, you're buying a lower price point option, but you're getting the same frame as Alan Hatherley does, versus making a lower spec carbon frame for the world champion probably isn't going to go down that well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's probably worth knowing there is actually two versions of the frame already. They're both at the same level in terms of price, but there is like a more trail-oriented frame that has down tube storage and is sort of intended with a slightly longer fork on the front, but is effectively the same frame otherwise. So yeah, I mean, maybe if they did offer a second tier of carbon fiber, then that's all of a sudden 4 frames that they're making rather than 2. But yeah, I don't know. It just surprised me, and I didn't expect it to come from Giant of all brands. I guess Giant, at least in Australia, has long been a price conscious brand, and this doesn't feel that way. It's $9,000 for a bike with aluminium wheels, and sorry, 9,000 Australian dollars with the a bike with aluminium wheels and a mechanical
So
drivetrain.
about £6.50 sterling.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, give or take a penny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Giant to really convey to consumers that yes, this is perhaps more expensive than you think this spec level should be, but you're getting this top end ridiculous level frame.
Like, and also to be honest, like I sense that you haven't really figured out exactly how you feel about this yet. There's pros and
No.
cons to it, and I'm the same.
Yeah.
It's like there is so much confusion and so much, frankly, bullshit. Pardon my French, that exists around this layup differences and all these other. You upgrade for $3,000 extra, you can get this other frame that is 6.5 grams lighter or something. It's like, most of it is just nonsense. And so removing that confusion for the customer on the one hand is good, but I get back to again, like, yeah, is it dragging up the lower prices or is it dragging down the top prices? And it seems to be dragging up the lower prices in this case.
Yep. But not, I mean, in turn, it's like, the scales don't lie, and the frame is supremely light and is therefore lighter than any other bike that you're going to buy with a mechanical drivetrain fitted to it. But yeah, it does leave me questioning, like, is this the right call for selling bikes?
Forgive my mountain bike illiteracy here for a second, but how often are riders upgrading the components after they bought a bike? Because that could be an option here. Like if you're gonna be changing these components anyway, not sure if I'm making any sense because the bike is more expensive with the components you're going to be changing. But anyway, it's a question.
I get what you're saying. I would say it's more frequently done than it is on the road, just because mountain bike tends to increase the wear and tear on.
Yeah, I know that much. That's kind of why I'm thinking it might be a consideration.
Yeah, but then you do have things like the suspension. Typically, people run until they can't anymore, just because of the cost of that. Wheels, I'd also say people, in my experience, have been pretty stubborn to spend extra for mountain bike wheels because there's always the fear that the next ride will be the ride that you ruin that wheel, and so there is the fear to spend more than you need to because I guess in my experience, a lot of mountain bikers just tend to run things until the things stop working and then they'll consider upgrading. So I don't have a clear answer to that, but I guess in Giant's defense, like yes, some of the components lower level than what you'd expect for the bike's price, but I'd say they've done a pretty good job in equipping the bikes. Like each level, still, each level still has great tires and a good handlebar and a good dropper seat post and all that. So there's no like real obvious pain points in the specification. It's just I don't know. I just don't expect bike with Dior mechanical shifting at €4,500. So it's anyway. New bike, pretty interesting one. I've spent probably the last 2 weeks thinking about it at this point. So do head to Escape Collective, check out my initial impressions, and if you do like mountain bikes, then there's a good chat with the person responsible for doing such bikes for Giant bicycles. In our podcast feed. So check out that special episode.
Dave, before we do move on, you have a review of this bike on the website.
Early impressions.
Have you reviewed any similar bikes on Escape that are comparison points for you as you're working through this one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got XC bikes have sort of long been my jam. It's sort of how I got into media 15 years ago. But just in the last year or two, Yeti ASR, Cannondale Scalpel, Lauf Elia. You'll find all those reviews online. And then certainly writing this Anthem, I think I've owned about 2 or 3 of them in my past. Not that I mentioned that in the review, but that was weighing on me that that platform hadn't really excited me since the last one I owned 8 or 9 years ago. And so it's a big win for Giant that I'm so keenly talking about this bike. Well, I mean, speaking of unexpected things, Ronan, DT Swiss, I would say, is very well known for its steel spokes. Would you find it shocking that they now have a wheel set with carbon fiber spokes?
I would. I was hoping you'd go somewhere else with that because I had a response in mind, but you didn't go there and it kind of threw me. Would I find that shocking? I mean, I guess it depends on the name. If the name is confusing as ever and I didn't realize that they had carbon spokes, then I guess I wouldn't be all that shocked. But if we clearly pointed out that this is a carbon spoke upgrade, then I guess that is a pretty big deal, isn't it? For a company like DT Swiss.
I don't know how you didn't understand that there was carbon spokes in the name, because it's called an ARC 1100 Spline 38 CS, and everyone would know the CS stands for carbon spoke.
To be fair to DT, they've kind of nailed the naming on. Well,
It's catchy. It's real catchy. Yeah. So no, I mean, it's it to me. It's kind of shocking that they're using a spoke that isn't their own. I mean, they're the largest spoke manufacturer in the world, and they've built a wheel that is, in theory, now it is their lightest wheel they've ever done. But it's also, in some ways, perhaps one of the more flagship offerings. And yeah, to not use a spoke of their own, I found quite surprising.
I have a theory.
And quite, yes.
So, members of Escape Collective will or may have already seen that I have an article on the website this week delving into. Basically, we got behind the scenes access to BMC's new time trial frame development project. And even if you're not into time trial frames, I would urge you to go and check this out, because where I have had and other publications have had access to development projects in the past, typically all the development work is actually already done. Whereas this time, BMC literally let me in the door when they didn't even have a frame yet. And we've been tracking it. I haven't been at BMC every day since, or setting up BMC meetings every day since, but we've had access that I never would have imagined would be possible. And that's why we said yes to this one. Big part of that project has been two-door pro cycling. And I think, and I already thought this before this project, but it's sort of confirmed it for me, seeing how they operate and see how they work with BMC and see how BMC work with them, that two-door is a team to watch in the coming years. And they are sort of quietly developing this engineering.
I like that pun.
Quietly developing this engineering team within the cycling team. And they, in this time trial project, for example, they led the CFD analysis, all the aero work. BMC obviously highly experienced and skilled in that department also. But what I found was interesting was actually the cycling team are sort of leading that side of the project and helping their manufacturer develop a new product in that way, versus what typically happens with teams and sponsors is the sponsor will develop a new frame or a new helmet or whatever it is, deliver it to the team will test it and go, oh, thumbs up, this is great, we love it, and some marketing story will be written.
Or in rare cases thou'll go, we don't like it, and then just continue using the old one,
or continue using the one they don't like because they're paid to do so. But I thought this was very different. It is very different, and I get the sense that two-door work this way with all their sponsors, DT Swiss being one. And I wonder if one other element, I haven't heard any suggestion of this, but I just wonder if two-door are like, well, we have identified this, we need this, DT Swiss go and make this. Perhaps.
It's very possible. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same wheel as DT Swiss's ARC 1100 Spline 38, so it's their shallowest, sort of lightest climbing wheel. But yeah, they've swapped out DT Swiss's own spokes for carbon spokes from Vinoa. I hope I didn't butcher that, but they're this carbon spoke supplier for like Newman wheels and also a few select Roval wheels. So yeah, these spokes basically just save a bunch of weight off the wheels. So it takes the previous wheel set weight with the steel bladed spokes from 1,298 grams down to 1,174 grams. So yeah, not a bad saving just out of a bunch of spokes. But yeah, I think you're probably right on that one, Ron. I also wouldn't be too surprised if two-door have a bunch to do with it. And it's probably also worth noting that in DT Swiss's own press release, they do make reference to the BMC team machine and to some other projects related to that team and sponsorship. So you're probably exactly right, or entirely right. But yeah, I mean, it's I think, yeah, for me, what stood out most is, we know carbon spokes save weight out of wheels, but I just found it shocking that DT Swiss, the spoke manufacturer that they are, and these wheels, they've always made a big deal about how they're almost entirely, they are basically an entirely in-house product. Like they even make the carbon rim themselves. And yeah, I just found it surprising that they would outsource the spoke. So yeah, what a time to be alive. Anyway, yeah, one to watch. It'd be interesting to see whether DT Swiss sort of take that concept and continue using spokes that aren't theirs and other wheels. So maybe some deeper wheels still to come, but time will tell. In other news, Trek have announced that their Project One program, where you can choose custom paint and choose the specifications of your bike, is expanding to not force you to just get complete bikes anymore. Now you can just order a frame set in Project One. So pick your paint and get the frame and then build it up yourself. Yeah, Project Run's been around for a long time, more than a decade, and maybe 2 decades at this point.
I'm pretty sure it's since before forever.
Yeah, before forever. Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly goes as I remember clearly. It certainly predates Cancellara, if I'm not mistaken. But
I mean, does anything predate that? I thought that whole area was just wiped from the record books. If we are talking about Trek,
yeah, it goes as far back as current cycling history would go. But yeah, anyway, I think it's interesting. I mean, I'd have to speculate as to why now, which is maybe they have the capacity to offer it. A lot of these programs, I'd say the demand is not at its highest, but anyway, options are good things.
I hadn't realized that you couldn't get a frame on Project One. And so I was reading the email. I was like, what's going on here? Like, it talks about you can build it up any way you want, and that meaning like you've got a frame, you can do what you want at home. And I was like, oh yeah,
yeah.
It was when you know that piece of information, then the rest of it it's very self-explanatory. But at the time I got the email, I did not realize that. But my bad.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, on this, I'd heard it from a few shops in the area that they're selling more frames, and from brands as well, that they're selling more frame set than they historically have. And I guess it just comes from like group sets and wheels being somewhat set at the moment. Like there's not a lot of movement in what's happening it's more in those spaces, and the prices of those things are so insanely high, and they're durable. And yeah, I think people are just, previously they would have waited till they wore out a group set and buy a whole bike, but nowadays it's people are changing frames more than they are changing group sets and wheels.
I think it's just that when you, for quite, not everything obviously, but for quite a few, especially premium products these days, which Project One would be if you're getting that paint job done, you're probably looking at a higher end spec also.
Absolutely.
And I think when you sit down and you do the math on it, actually buying a frame and buying group sets separately and the wheels and everything separately, the way we used to do it, not only would you end up with the saddle you want rather than the one your comes with a bike, but you, in many cases, actually end up with a lower number than the bike is sold for as a complete bike. I don't have examples of this, but yeah, again, it's not everything on the market, but there are certain options that when you sit down, you tally up the premium stuff. Hold on a minute, I can save some money going individual here and going old-fashioned way where I buy a frame and then build it. Heavens above, can you imagine?
Yeah. Maybe it's a bit of both. A bit of both people upgrading just frames and also people figuring out that it's not necessarily worse value at the ultra high end. So just build it up, maybe carry a few older parts over, and also piecemeal the things. Especially people wanting really short cranks and different gearing ratios and all that. That's not available off the shelf. Then yeah, it does start to make more sense if you're custom building it yourself. Especially
when you're stuck with a stem and handlebar. That shall I keep going?
Yep. Yep. Let's not. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So there you have it.
Build your own bikes, folks.
Trek Project One now available as frame sets, just like everyone else is offering.
Wasn't that like we did that aero bike checklist shopping list earlier this year? Wasn't that like one of the things we had said was like consider buying a frame? And
we did. Yeah, I guess this is our idea. We created it. No one else had sold a frames before that podcast. All right, let's take a quick break to our space where we don't have an ad, and we'll come back with a PSA. And we're back.
That was a quick ad.
It was. It was almost as if we're wholly member funded with no ads.
Let's not get too deep into it because we'll spoil the. Like, it was quick. Let's not make it slow.
Okay, good. All right. A PSA. We haven't had one for a few weeks. And it's a simple one, which is you shouldn't hear your gears when you're not shifting. And this comes off the all too frequent sound on the road where you hear riders and their gears are rasping or skipping or yeah, whether it's from a dry chain or a poor adjustment or a bent derailleur hanger. I guess yeah, the PSA is just a simple one, which is if you're hearing your drivetrain and you're not actively trying to shift it, then perhaps things could be better.
Not always, though.
How so?
Well, I mean, I just mean, like, if you go for a one by narrow wide chainring these days, there probably is going to be some. So, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just like, let's maybe lay out what noise you can expect and what noise, without bringing the noises onto the podcast here, because we don't have a stock of correct and incorrect sounds to come from your bicycle. Maybe we should have a stock library for that to drop into.
We should create that. Yeah.
But yeah, can you explain what's normal, what's not?
Yeah, I think on modern drivetrains, especially, I think a little bit of chain noise is normal or to be expected. Maybe not wanted, but to be expected. And so, yeah, I think it can be really dependent on what gear you're in, even the chain line of your bike or the type of chain lube you use is certainly a big factor. But yeah, I think a little bit of like chain rasping on extreme gears has become increasingly common on modern 12, 13 speed drivetrains. But then I would say like the sound of it like rubbing on the next cog over or it sounding like it's wanting to skip would be not common and solvable. So yeah, a little bit of like grinding from the chain is I think within allowance, but an actual moan of it wanting to like jump onto the next cog or yeah, actively rubbing against the next cog, I think is a sign that things can be better. So, or like a ticking sound of it wanting to, jump off the tooth a little bit. I think that's another one that is somewhat commonly heard these days. And yeah, suggested that tolerances are really tight on modern 12, 13 speed drivetrains. And so it doesn't take much for that sound to appear. And yeah, if you're hearing it, I think it's worth noting that things can be better.
I mean, Dave, again, we don't have a library of these sounds, and we're also not on video, although we maybe should be. I appreciate also it's different for every drivetrain, but do you want to give us like an overview of a couple of fixes if you are getting these noises?
Yeah, certainly a tough one to answer, and the solution's gonna vary depending on what drivetrain you have, whether it's mechanical or electronic. But some of the common issues would be just like the exact location of the derailleur in relation to the cog you're in. So with a mechanical drivetrain, that would often be like cable tension related. With an electronic drivetrain, that would be like the micro adjustment. And yeah, I'd say if things were perfect and all of a sudden are not, then I'd be probably looking towards like maybe a bent derailleur hanger or something like that. That's changed the adjustment.
That might have been a better question actually, is like, rather than trying to explain all the different ways you could fix this issue, do you have like a bike that's on the stand? And I appreciate it's kind of second nature most of the time when you're working on bikes as often as you do, but is there a process for identifying the issue?
Not an easy one to outline, no. I mean, that just comes from a lot of experience, and it can be many, many different things. I would just say to give you one tip is with the bike in the work stand, if you have been hearing your gears grind a bit or catching or skipping a little bit, one thing I like to do is just very gently, you pedal the bike and you can hear the noise. I very gently push on the derailleur to see whether pushing it inwards towards the wheel makes it go quieter or pulling it toward you on the outside of the bike makes it go quieter. Like whether, just carefully realigning the derailleur by hand improves the sound. And that can be a pretty quick way to diagnose whether, which direction you need to move the derailleur for things to improve. Of course, if you're dealing with a bent derailleur hanger, that's not going to help you until you fix the root problem. But yeah, it does help me like get a very quick understanding of like barrel adjustments or trim adjustment if it's electronic drivetrain. So yeah, one to consider before you start fiddling with.
Can I add a PSA to our PSA? In that the noise might not always be coming from your derailleur or your drivetrain. It could be,
true that,
as we've discussed previously, free hubs or preload in your hubs if your wheels have that, or could be coming from the wheel also. or more specifically the
Yeah,
hub.
could be all sorts of things. Spoke creak. It could be your pedals. It could be
Oh,
your
I just mean
crank.
like I've had it
Noises
before
resonate. Yeah.
where like it when you're riding the bike, it sounds like, oh, it's, I need a derailleur adjustment here because it sounds like it's between sprockets or just not lined up perfectly, and then you actually stop to look at it and go, oh, look, there's a bit of, I need to tighten up the preload in that free hub or whatever, or that hub, or just one example that springs to mind for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where like an experienced mechanic comes in, is that someone who doesn't have the experience and know what to chase, they'd be chasing everything until they figure it out. Whereas an experienced mechanic should have a feel for this. They'd be able to take it for a ride, and if it were the gears, they'd probably be able to feel it through the pedals, versus chasing down other issues. So once again, I think if you're unsure, find someone who has experience in this, and they'll get to the bottom of it in an efficient way.
I can't figure out if you're suggesting that I have experience or don't have experience.
I'm not talking about you. Yeah, I realize how that sounded. I wasn't meaning to belittle.
I correctly identified the issue within seconds.
Yeah. So the PSA wasn't for you, right?
Moving on.
Yeah. Should we have a good thing?
Yeah, if you've got one.
I do. I bought another one, Ronan. I've gone ahead and I couldn't help myself. I was in this very desirable tool shop in Taichung, Taiwan, which is based on a dream shop of Japan called Factory Gear for the tool nerds out there. It's kind of the mecca for tool nerds. And I was in the store, and they had their house brand electric screwdriver new version on sale, and I couldn't help it, but I've acquired another one.
Oh, another electric screwdriver. That's
another electric screwdriver.
Exactly what you needed, wasn't it? It's not even Christmas yet.
I think I'm up to 6 of them now.
Wow.
Yep. So for those people, for people wondering what the hell an electric screwdriver is, it's basically a screwdriver, but with a motor in it. And so it looks and acts just like a regular handheld screwdriver.
I'm wondering if anybody was wondering that.
Everyone's wondering it.
Okay, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory. Electric screwdriver.
Well, no, I think when I say electric screwdriver, I think most people would probably assume like something that looks like a drill, like a large power tool. And this, in my mind, an electric screwdriver is actually just a screwdriver with e-assistance. It's like the e-bike of screwdrivers. And so, it looks just like a handheld screwdriver. You use it just like a screwdriver, and the good ones are fixed, so you can actually just manually use them in either direction to turn a screw. But then they have a button that allows you to like wind, that takes over and lets you rapidly wind through the length of thread without having to keep turning it yourself. And I've become a huge fan of these, largely from a Japanese company called Vessel. But I've become a huge fan of these for like any task on a bicycle that has like repetitive motion. So like undoing a stem, for example, or rotor bolts or chainring bolts, or anything that's like a repeated task. These have quickly become my go-to tool, just because I can grab them, I can crack the fastener free with these things, and then just with the push of a button it just does the rest of it. So a stem that swapping out a stem can be a bit of a fiddly job, where you've got these 4 bolts that you have to, pretty long bolts you have to wind in and out, and this thing just, cuts the task down into a matter of seconds without any fatigue. So, big fan. There's a lot of these on the market. Most suck, but I have been enjoying the Vessel ones, and the one I bought for myself is from a company called Dean. DEEN, which good luck finding that one, because you have to be in Taichung to get it. Yeah.
What is it that sucks about some of them?
A lot of them are cumbersome to use, like they're too big, too close to a power tool. Others don't allow you to use them like a manual screwdriver. So I think that's the key feature that I like, is like being able to like loosen and tighten the screw without using the electric function. A lot of them like sort of force you into using the electric function, and then that gives you like a loss of tactile control and feel, and so you end up often needing to like have a second tool nearby where you can crack the fastener loose and then use the screwdriver, and then at that point it's slower if you're having to undo a screw and then change the tool.
I thought you would have mentioned speed as well. Like, or are they all roughly the same speed?
No, they're definitely not roughly the same speed. yeah, there's a big variance there. There's also a huge variance in like the torque that they'll do, which is what inspired me to buy this new one from Factory Gear, because it goes up to a higher torque. But yeah, for me, like it goes back to the vessels, which I've covered numerous times on Threaded, and I had them in. I think they're one of my favorite products of like 2024. Is that they're low torque, so there's zero risk in like using an electric function and over tightening a stem, for example, because they kind of lock out at like 2.5, 3 newton meters, and then it's up to you to twist it tighter. So I actually really like that for bicycle applications, because there's very few areas on the bike that you could damage accidentally when using these. So, but yeah, I think they're a good thing, and to the point that I think I mentioned I had 6 of them, but either way, I've got enough of them that on my tool wall I have basically them set up with a 4. I have one set up with a 4mm hex. I have another one set up with a 5mm hex, and one with a T25, and then there's another one floating around that I just if I need a different size bit, I'll use that one. But yeah, they've reached that sort of level of regular usage where I have them dedicated to common tasks.
Wow.
So
is it just the Vessel electric screwdriver, or are there different models?
Confusingly, there are quite a few models these days. Especially if you're like shopping on Amazon, there's a high chance you'll be picking up an old model, which they're quite good still, but or a fake, unfortunately. Even the old models are quite good, but a couple of years ago they updated their screwdrivers to be USB-C, and that's kind of the newer generation. And then for those that read Threaded, a few weeks ago I had in a new Tools Day version, I had their latest version, which just came out, which is it's called the 220 USB 2 screwdriver, and this is still, I think it's Japan market only, so I imported this one. I don't believe it's in the US or Australia for domestic sale just yet, but yeah, this one's basically USB-C, but also slightly increased torque, so it does 3 newton meters of torque. And then for those that'll tune into my next Threaded probably early next week, I'm gonna share my week of tool nerding in tool shops, and include my purchase in that, which is the new screwdriver from Dean, which is apparently goes up to 5 newton meters, which I still need to test out, but it seemed like it had a very similar feel and function to the Vessel, but just with more power. So that's what inspired me to buy one on the spot.
I'm just realizing the fatal mistake that you made, Dave, in that you only bought one. And so if you do like it and you then decide that you need 6 of them, you have to go back to Taiwan. How did you not consider this?
No, I mean, Factory Gear do ship internationally if you're willing to pay the postage prices. It's an option. I also feel that there's enough people that enable me that every time they visit Japan, they offer to buy me something if I want it. It seems to happen more than it should. So thank you to those people. But I think the options are alive. But also hopefully I don't feel the need to update all my perfectly good premium electric screwdrivers.
Well, if you do, I will cover the cost of shipping to Ireland.
It's very kind of you. Thank you, Ronan.
Put yourself in a big box and carry the screwdrivers with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, if you're on the fence about one of these, I'd encourage you to check it out. They're surprisingly, like the Vessels are surprisingly quite affordable. Just don't do what I did recently, which is gift the former chairman of your building one in front of the entire building governance body. Because Ronan, I don't know if you've seen a photo of these, but they look.
Oh yes! Oh my God! I know where you're going. Oh God!
They don't necessarily look like a screwdriver. Yeah. Some would say microphone. Others would say some other kind of electric device from a bedside table. And so it did lead to a room full of ladies giggling.
There's a pun in there somewhere about screws,
something like that. But anyway, I gave it knowing full well what it looked like and thought it'd be hilarious.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
And useful. But anyway, very good. Should we speaking of, should we get on to Ask a Wrench?
I think we should get out of here as quickly as we can.
On that note, Yeah, this week Brad Copeland's back once again. He's in the off season between driving the big red van between lifetime Grand Prix races. So he joins us to help answer some member questions related to floor pump maintenance, fancy bottom brackets, and whether they can be a lifetime purchase. And there's a fun question about disc brake compatibility on a mountain bike with flat mounts. All that and more up next if you're a member. If you're not a member, this is where we say goodbye. All right, Ronan, thank you very much. Catch you again soon.
Thank you.
Good luck with the week of podcasting ahead. And I'm sure if anyone wondering what you're spending your time on, head over to Performance Process.
You just don't want to hang up, do you?
I don't. I want to keep recording forever and ever. It's Performance Process. It's got its own feed, much like Geek Warning. Otherwise, if you are a subscriber to Escape Collective, you can join the Everything podcast feed, and you will also find it in there. I'll say goodbye for real now. Cheers, Ren. Thanks to Will Jones of Red Bricks Media for the editing and mixing of this episode.